human connection is, it's twofold ROI for your time.
Not a lot of people cover the other side of what is happening right now.
Whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, the science shows we all need connection.
It sounds awful, but I'm not
The
surprised.
number one thing, I'm going to sound like Gary Vee here.
I am fired up right now.
Success without service is hollow. There needs to be some element of giving back.
Fascinating.
That's it. Everybody wants 5-figure speaking gig, but if you're allowed to hug your freaking team member, long term, right?
Yeah, very long term. Hi there and welcome to a new episode. Today we have a human connection speaker with us, Simone Hang. She is awarded multiple times. In 2020, she was named as one of the top 10 public speaking coaches globally by Yahoo. She has many accolades, but I'm really excited to just have her on, tell her about her, ask you about your journey, of course. Simone, please introduce yourself. Where might the people know you from?
Hi, so I'm based here in Singapore. You might know me from my social media profiles on LinkedIn and Instagram and the like. I used to be a broadcaster as well for many, many years for the likes of like Virgin Radio, and I was on CNN and all these other things. But most recently, since about 2 years ago, I speak to organizations globally on the topic of human connection. I define personally human connection as that wonderful energetic exchange that we've all experienced when we can feel, see, and discover ourselves in another human being. Human connection is vital on a much deeper level than just presenting for us. So when we perceive ourselves to be alone or we're socially distanced, we have this fight or flight response. We get stress hormones through our body, like cortisol, and that's actually okay as an evolutionary response. It tells us, hey, we need to go out and connect with people. Your loneliness is just your body saying, hey, for your well-being, to get some oxytocin, dopamine, feel-good hormones, you need to go and meet people. But where it's dangerous is if that fight or flight response is chronic over a long period of many years. So those stress hormones are being released chronically in your body. It's very, very important that you have strong human connections. So you can see the difference there. Yes, public speaking is important. Public speaking is the structure, the external capsule, I call it, of what I do. But the message, the medicine inside that capsule of human connection is far more important to our survival. I had never associated stress with loneliness, but I know how it feels in my soul, in every crevice of my body. I know how loneliness creates stress now. That the doctor had to tell me it was a link. And then when I started speaking of human connection, I was like, oh, so this is logistically, pragmatically why when we're lonely the brain creates a stress response. Now I get it, but at that time I didn't have any of that knowledge, so I actually started to think I was going crazy, and I wasn't talking to any people my age. I would spend all of my social time with older people in the nursing home, when I'd visit my mum. So let's use that as an analogy for the life of a startup founder. You are spending every minute in your office working crazy hours. You have interaction with people who work for you. Now, that's very different to people who are your chosen friends, where there isn't an additional level of complication to that relationship. The antidote to that problem is really that you need to cultivate friendships outside of your startup. You need to have friends, connections beyond the workplace.
But how would you convince someone in the first 3 years, they kind of know it's important, but they're an introvert, they're happy with what they're doing, they're getting a lot of positive feedback from the growth they're experiencing. How would they go about making that connection, asking from a perspective from someone who isn't social?
I believe whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, the science shows we all need connection. If someone's really driven first 3 years of their business and their primary concern is not to be connected, but it is to drive the growth of their business, just think, how much information have you learned simply by the act of doing this podcast, okay? So if they could see the leverage in their own growth from making human connections and the benefit to their business, it's a twofold return on investment. For that hour you spend with someone who's cleverer than you or knows more than you about a particular subject, not only if they are a like-minded person, you're going to get inspiration, connection, feel-good hormones like dopamine and oxytocin, which is a social bonding hormone. You're going to get that. But you're also going to get between the lines of the conversation incredible tips on how to do your business better. If your mind is making the connections with what they're saying, you're also getting things that are going to drive the growth of your business. The best inspiration I get for ideas for social media content marketing for the business, or keynote speeches, anecdotes for things. It's all from those accidental moments, walking the dog, watching something. We're missing that. So human connection is also fantastic for problem solving and innovation.
How would you handle a virtual business, or how would you tell them to connect better and create moments like that?
I just moderated a panel with the president of Microsoft Asia, and he was talking about they've given, because it's a virtual environment, everyone's working from home, what they've done to allow people to have human connection within their families is they've just given everyone 5 extra leave days a year, and they gave them a full Friday off. Also, a large proportion of their workforce is in India, and obviously India has been hit tragically by COVID. So allowing people to spend more moments with a human connection within their home is still a way to get more feel-good human connection, and you're doing it safely as well. The aim is just to get people, introverted or not, to have a little bit more of what we were used to pre-COVID for their mental health and their well-being. There are 3 orbits of loneliness, okay? The first orbit is called intimate loneliness, and this is a yearning for a partner, okay? Boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you like. The next orbit of loneliness is relational loneliness, and this is to do with close friends and family. So these are people who might be yearning to mend family ties that are fractured, or who feel they were abandoned by their family. These people who are lonely for good friends, because maybe they have really good family members, but they don't really have friends outside the family. That orbit's really important. And the final orbit is actually all to do with what you've done at Startup Funding Event, and that's called collective loneliness. That's people who have the other orbits, but are yearning for a group of people who share their mission and their purpose. So if we can align all 3 of those orbits, we are well on our way to becoming the highest integration of ourselves.
A lot of tech industry especially talks about family and everything creating within your business. How realistic is creating a family in your business?
I've spoken for a lot of organizations, and I think it's very different depending who you're speaking to on the team. But I admire that it's a culture that is being cultivated. The mandate should not be about projecting an image of family or projecting an image of a certain culture. The mandate should be asking your employees, do they feel connected with the company's mission, with their own well-being and health, with their relationships at the home that they're having to probably work from home from right now, and with a sense of connectedness with their intimate partner. They're the real questions.
Having such a physical career, you have to go somewhere. What did you do? How were your first months like? Could you elaborate maybe a bit?
Sure. I'm a big believer because I've seen how little I've had to struggle for example, for coaching clients or speaking gigs versus people who haven't built an online presence. I talk obviously about East-West communication, also the intersection of mental health and a lack of human connection. And people can only come to me for that because I put out so much content about that. And so if you want to be found in a time of mass retrenchment, the easiest way is just devote a day a week to batch recording that content and just getting it out there, and trying to not get it out there to promote you and your services, but get it out there to enrich other people's lives with the guise that you're okay to give away your best stuff for free.
Don't you feel like you put it out and it just vanishes into the sea of billions of other content pieces?
No. My guess is maybe the content that's going out is more self-serving than others-driven. If you can just weight it towards more others-driven, it doesn't matter what you look like, what age you are. If you're adding value to your particular niche, find out who your audience is, check your insights, you're going to see traction. So how can you take what's different about you, and then a subject matter that you're an expert in that might have already been done before, and you put that perspective onto it? My speaking mentor speaks on creativity and innovation, and in his keynote speech, he says, creativity is not a whole new idea. It's an amalgamation of 2 or 3 existing ideas. That's it, and build your niche around that. I don't think it's inauthentic, if we're talking from a business point of view, I don't think it's inauthentic to target a part of the market that we can, as the definition I shared earlier was, that we can see feel and discover ourselves in. That's connection. When your followers can see themselves reflected in you, in the way you talk, in your values, your story, your vernacular, your appearance, when they can see themselves reflected, well then, of course they're gonna follow you. Why I absolutely love niche casting on the internet is that you can really speak about things you're passionate about and not worry if you deter people who don't resonate with that message.
I would like to hear from your perspective. How is it like as a woman to start a business? You're probably talking to other women founders. What were some pitfalls you were going through? How did you get through it? Could you kind of shape the first year? How was it for you?
I found it very interesting, the reaction to when a woman is ambitious about figures and putting it out there. So that's one takeaway that I can tell you, is that it's definitely not as accepted. And on the other hand, I think that there is a lot of camaraderie that I found. And I found women online who were similar age, similar scale of the business. And I started in COVID throughout that whole year, just videoing with them, and we just catch up online. And so I can have that cohesion, and there privately we can talk numbers and we can talk online products and Facebook ads and share resources. That is a beautiful place that just stopped me from feeling very alone on the journey. And the last point on the difference between the genders that I perceive in all of this is when I watch my partner and I watch a lot of his friends talk about materialistic things, and I don't know what it is. They're also a different generation to you, okay? So they're 40s and 50s. And this whole rhetoric about having purpose, social impact, being of service, that's millennial. Like that, they don't have that. Like for them, it's like, how much did I take home? Did I get a bonus? Did I buy the car? Do I have the pretty girlfriend? Like it's so different, and I find that very alienating.
Could you cover then both the accountability group and the women? How often do you do it? What do you guys talk about? And also the most important part, which is you are hanging out with essentially competitors, from what I understand.
The girls were the ones that told me, hey, this B2C courageous speaking thing, they gave me confidence to buy the name courageousspeaking.com. They, we share resources all the time, online courses and things like that. And it's been life-changing. I can't tell you how important it is. Only one of the other women in the group speaks on communications, the same stuff as me. But my biggest point that I think I mentioned really early is that as a speaker or someone moving in the expert space, the number one valuable thing besides having thoughts, because you're meant to be a thought leader, is that you have an original perspective on whatever topic. So we're both coaching and communication, but the human connection slant that I bring to my public speaking training is different from her linguistics background. I think when you've been raised in a very competitive environment, like I was raised in a hugely competitive household, it sends you into fight or flight where you perceive people as your competition where they don't have to be. And how fruitful my life became when I stopped being competitive and I started being collaborative. The amount of recommendations, resources that I've been sent by wholeheartedly helping others. Envy is the arrow to what you want to do. Next time you see someone online you're envious at, that is just the arrow telling you to get off your butt to do something that you actually admire in them. And that's not my quote, by the way. It's by Glennon Doyle Melton, who's one of my favorite authors. So my biggest advice is to go from competition to collaboration.
In your case, human connection is, your number one focus. If she wasn't mature, I'm pretty sure you've had examples like that in the past. How do you deal with that?
Your job is to be compassionate. Once you find out whether they're going through a hard time or not, the next step is to self-preserve for you and your business. So represent your business well, make sure that you leave it diplomatically, because you may have to bump into them, you may have to see them again, and you might be in the same office at an investor that you both want, you might be sitting there, you just want it to be as little energy draining for you as possible later on. And then of course, leave them like an opening later on. If they come back and they do apologize, leave them that opening and be gracious and accept it.
Really like that. The whole speaker thing, the speaker business, setting that up, how is that different than, for instance, any other business?
I mean, the first priority for any speaker is like, get good at speaking. Get really good at your message and executing that message. That's the most important thing. Definitely in the current economy, get really good at speaking on camera. So you need to be really good at communicating your messages online. You need to have a book for credibility. You also need to be an online course creator. that's changed everything for me. Then you have coaching, which is like one-on-one coaching, and then of course your keynote speeches. So that's kind of how the experts like Brendan Burchard suggest to do a speaking business. And definitely in my experience versus the old business model, I think it's a much better tactic to financial stability and variety. I would get bored if I just did speeches and nothing else. I love the connection of giving back to people, and watching people grow and change through coaching it's priceless. It's amazing.
I love that. I think based on that, we can definitely wrap up because it's been a ton of golden nuggets.
Oh, I hope so.